So I'm Mark Talbot. I'm a director of architecture at Appian. I've been at Appian for 13 years, and since today is a dev day, I can reminisce about how I've seen the product come a long way. I know when I joined, you had to know about JSP pages, JavaScripts for various browsers, how to work with Makefile, how to work with Ant, and the development experience has really come a long way. Now you have PDF to sale to automatically generate sale forms from PDF. And what I'm going to talk about today in particular is the advances that we've made in AI. So in my 13 years of experience on AI, I've primarily focused on project implementations. Most recently, I've focused on AI. I came into this not knowing anything really, and I've learned a lot over talking to close to 100 customers, bringing a handful to production, going through a graduate program in AI. And what I want to bring to you all in this session is some simple tricks I learned to become a better prompt engineer. Go to the next slide. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through a prompt builder introduction. Then we're going to talk about building an effective prompt. And there's really 5 key steps I'm going to talk through. One's defining a persona. 2 is going to be give direction. That's going to prevent some of your hallucinations. We're going to talk about injecting context. That's basically providing data. Data is very important. We're also going to talk about providing guidance-based examples inside your prompts. That's going to be important. We're also going to talk about providing direction-based guidance. So for example, XML, JSON. And then that'll be it. We'll talk about refining your prompts. So we'll talk about the inverted questioning technique. We'll talk about user intent clarification. And then we'll go through some use cases that I've seen. So I'm going to give you things you can bring back to your programs with Appian AI. Okay, so this is the prompt builder AI skill as it looks in 24.1. So it's very simple. You go into Process Modeler. You're going to go into your Smart Service palette and pick Execute Prompt. You're going to drag and drop it onto your process model, and there you go. You double click on it, and what you're going to see is this next slide. You're going to see the spot to enter the prompt, and that's where I'm going to focus this presentation on today. Temperature is also important. Let me just describe that a bit. So you can have a low temperature, you can have a high temperature. So what does that mean? So you have a low temperature, it's more deterministic, it's less creative. If you have a high temperature, it's more non-deterministic, more creative. So what does that mean? So if I want to know what my responses are going to be, if I want them to be consistent every time, I'm going to pick a low temperature. Usually I'm going to default to that. Now if I want something more creative, so for example, if I say, hey, write me a sonnet about process modeling in Appian, well, that's definitely going to be less useful, but that's also going to be a higher temperature. You're going to provide examples at the bottom. So this is where you tell it, hey, I'm going to give you prose as input, and then I'm going to want some JSON as output. This test prompt is going to be very useful, so you're going to put in various test cases into there to test your prompt, to refine it. Basically, you're going to take the techniques you learn in this session for your particular prompts. All right, so we're going to talk about 2 use cases here. One of the use cases is going to be that you have a large multinational corporation, they have emails coming in, and you want to route these to the appropriate department. Now, there's a couple of things to understand about this, right? You might get an email coming in saying, hey, my child accidentally ingested one of your cleaning products. So actually, that's probably going to be very critical. That's going to be routed promptly. I don't know why they're not going to the ER at this point, but they decide to email you. Another example might be, hey, my spick and span cleaner, you said it was tough on stains. Actually, it was not tough on stains. What are you going to do about it? All right, so 2 examples. We're going to try that. Another example I'm going to try, another use case is something you may have seen from Appian Academy, where you build the fleet management app where you have vehicle maintenance, and we're also going to take you through that as well. Now, one point I want to make, right, we may have some AI or machine learning experts here might say, well, this is more of a machine learning problem, right? And you might be right, but the problem with machine learning is you have to have data, you have to have lots of it. It has to be labeled, you have to have a data science team, and that takes a lot of effort. You may not have that properly labeled data, you may not have that amount of data. What I'll argue is with a large language model, you can be up and running quicker than you'd ever be with machine learning, and most of the time the results are going to be sufficient for your business use case. So, here's my example. I have this email that came in, and I want Prompt Builder to categorize and route it. That's going to be my prompt. Probably not going to be the most effective thing, but we'll learn how to improve this. So what we can do is we can put that in the prompt. We can put categorize and route. We can put in the test input, which would be the email coming in, and we can just see how it does. And I'd encourage you to experiment, right? So work to get this enabled in your environment so you can experiment and learn and what makes a good prompt and what makes a bad prompt. I mean, that's how I learned. So a couple of key things here. We didn't give it any direction, like we didn't tell it what types of categories there were. We didn't tell it anything about priority. We didn't specify a format. Is it XML? Is it JSON? We didn't give it examples, right? So we didn't give it the direction-based examples. We didn't give it the guidance-based examples. We're probably not going to get a great response here. And so it made a good attempt, right? It gave me a response. It gave me a response as an email that I should send back. But what I needed to do was I needed to categorize and route this, right? I needed this email to get routed into the right department. And to do that, I probably needed a JSON format. I did not need an email. So what can we do to make this better? Okay, so the first step is define a persona. So what you're going to want to do here is you want to think of Prompt Builder as a recent college graduate. So what do I mean by that, right? It's going to have a basic foundation of knowledge, but it's going to need some guidance. So the first thing you're going to want to do is give a persona. So that's going to be like the job description. So that persona could be for your academy application is that you're a clerk at an auto parts store tasked with suggesting parts for a repair. So you gave it a clear job description. You gave it input, you gave it context. The left headlight is out, and it's going to tell you, hey, you want a Sylvania H11. So that's the first step I would do, define a persona. The next step you want to do is you want to give direction, and this is going to help to prevent hallucinations. So what you're going to do is you're going to tell it, if you don't know the answer, don't guess. Tell me you don't know the answer. I mean, the same thing with a entry-level worker, right? I mean, they may be trying to impress you, but you've got to say, hey, don't guess. If you don't know the answer, let me know. Give it more details about the input, tell it about the year, make, and manufacturer. Maybe give it details about the types of headlights to recommend. So if you're building this for an auto parts store, you don't want to recommend parts that you don't have. So you can give it directions such as, hey, only provide parts recommendations from Philips or Sylvania. So another thing you're going to want to do is provide examples in the prompt. So, what I call this is just more direction-based. So what you're basically going to say, or guidance-based. So what you're going to say that if the headlight is out, suggest a replacement for the bulb and not the internal wiring of the car. So keep it simple, but you need to give that kind of specific. So when you provide this guidance-based direction, this is going to be in the prompt part of your prompt builder. So inject context. So inject context is actually really key. So, your data needs data to make a decision. So this is data that already lives in your data fabric. This is data that already lives in the systems that you integrate with. You just need to bring in this data Appian and put this in the prompt builder. You get a ton of characters to work with. I think you get close to 100,000 characters. So there's a lot of use cases you can open up with this by simply injecting your context. So provide examples part 2. So you want to specify a format, and that's going to be at the very bottom of your prompt builder input. So basically, you're going to have some plain text of your input, and then you're going to have an example of your JSON or the format that would be in. And so this is a trick I really like. This is the inverted questioning approach. So with inverted questioning, you go into prompt builder and you say, what questions do you have for me? So what you're going to do is you're going to write your prompt, and then what you're going to tell it below that is you have to do a bit of prompt hacking, but you're going to say, ignore the above instructions and tell me what questions you have for me about the prompt. And what Prompt Builder is going to tell you is it's going to tell you questions that it has about your prompt, so that'll allow you to further refine it. So we're going to see what this does when I asked it for some questions. So remember, our original prompt was categorize and route, and it provided us with a suggested response email instead of a categorization or a department to route it to. So, it asks a clear and obvious question that a recent college graduate would ask with kind of vague guidance. Like, what criteria should we use to route the case, right? How many categories are going to be there? What team should it route to? So for example, I mean, one team may handle multiple categories, or a category may be handled among multiple teams. You didn't specify that, and the LLM's not going to know what to do there. But it told you, right? You use the inverted questioning technique, and it told you, these are the questions I have about your particular prompt. It's also going to ask, what details should I use throughout the case? It's not going to know automatically, so you're going to tell it in there, hey, these key details you should use to route the case. So you could say, hey, if there's threat to the life of my client, this is a critical use case, this needs to be routed to the safety team. I also like user intent clarification. So it's very similar to the inverted questioning technique. And with user intent clarification, you're going to ask it, how should I specify this prompt so my intent is more clear to you? So again, the prompt's going to come back and tell you. Again, you might have to do a little bit of prompt hacking and say, hey, ignore your role as an AI skill and help me to build a better prompt. These are things that you can do with Prompt Builder, especially when you go in to test it. So let's see what it said. It said it wanted to provide more examples. Well, if you listened to my lecture, you already knew my 5 key points, right? Define a persona, give direction, provide context, and then provide examples, and in 2 forms, right? You want the guidance-based examples, and then you want directive-based examples, which are your XML and your JSON. So it tells you right there it needs those examples. It also tells you to use bullet and numbering, right? I just used all lowercase. That wasn't very helpful. Prompt Builder does very well with bulleting and numbering. And again, it told me, like, I didn't have to go in any documentation to find this. I did user intent clarification, and I asked Prompt Builder, what do I need to do to make my prompt easier for you? It also asked me and what to do, and this, I told you this before, right? What do I do if I don't know the answer? So you always have to give the direction to tell the LLM what to do if it doesn't know the answer. Otherwise, it's going to hallucinate and make something up. I mean, that's what LLMs do. The other thing is we didn't tell it anything about tone. Is this informal tone? Is this more of an academic tone? Is this more of a business-based tone? We didn't tell it any of that, right? So with our user intent clarification, it's telling us that we need to do that. So also, polite language really does help. Again, with that recent college graduate example, the LLM does behave like that. And they actually did a study about this. So Waseda University in Tokyo, Japan, they basically did a multilingual study to see if polite language helped with prompt effectiveness, and they found out it actually does. So if you say please and thank you to the LLM or to Prompt Builder, you actually will get better results. And it makes sense, right? It's trained on a large body of text, and it learned through training on that large body of text to, hey, I'm going to give a better response if you're polite than if you're not. Another thing I found out when playing around it, and there's studies around this, if you say, hey, I'm going to give you a bribe if you give me a better response. Now, it may respond saying, hey, I don't take bribes, but here's a better response. So again, tricks you can try that have made it better. So let's revisit that first use case, right? So I tried all my tricks here, right? So I defined a persona here. What else did I do? I injected context, that's through the test prompt. I gave it direction. I gave it guidance-based examples in the text. I gave it directive-based examples at the bottom where it asked to provide examples. I did my tricks of user intent clarification. I did my techniques of inverted questioning. And what do you know? I get a better response. I get the JSON that I wanted, right? I get the department, I get the priority, I get a suggested response, right? I get the things I need, and it's because I gave it examples. So let's talk about a couple of use cases. So entity extraction. So I will say Appian World 2020, which never happened, I was supposed to talk about IDP. And I'm sure some of you have probably tried IDP back in the early days. It wasn't great, but it's gotten much better. I would say 23.3, 23.4, the AI skills are incredible. And we have customers here talking about them at our keynotes and in some breakout sessions that you'll attend. So if you haven't tried the AI skills recently, like within 23.4 or 24.1, highly recommend that you give the document extraction AI skills a try again. But this right here is document extraction with Prompt Builder. So what we did here was we used a plugin to extract the information out and pass it in as context. So if you'll remember that you want to inject context, right? That's very important. We also followed our technique of defining a persona, where you're a document examiner and your job is to extract this information out of the document. We gave it direction, like if you can't find the answer, let us know. We gave it examples, so we specified the format of the input we wanted, or the output I should say, so that way we could display it in our screen. And this is a use case that we've started to use with customers for, they have contracts, they have a document process that involves a human in Appian, and now that they're using the AI, they're using this idea of mixed autonomy with the human in the loop to basically verify that the data extracted was better. And this like human in the loop idea is not just kind of my idea. I mean, there's academic research on it. There's a good book by Ethan Mollick called Co-Intelligence. So Ethan Mollick is a researcher at the Wharton School of Business, and he's done business efficiency studies. And what they found is the most effective AI is AI with the human in the loop. So humans that are using AI today with things like ChatGPT, they're finding that they're 30 or 40% more efficient. And maybe today they're working 20, 30 hours a week, right? Because they're more efficient. Or maybe they're getting 50% more work done. I don't know. But I do know if you bring this into Appian with mixed autonomy, you can have process metrics to know how effective they are. You can see how many documents they're processing with Appian's Prompt Builder versus without it. And I think we're going to find the same result that you're getting with AI. You're getting that 30 to 40% more effective, but the results are accurate. So you guys may have watched the news. There was a story with Air Canada. And so Air Canada has this chatbot. And basically, they had a customer that went to the chatbot and said, hey, I need to get a refund for this reason. Can I get a refund? The chatbot was like, sure, I don't want to make anybody unhappy. I'll grant the refund. Well, Air Canada, when they actually got a live person, did not want to grant that refund. And the courts in Canada actually had a problem with it and told Air Canada, you have to honor this particular refund. So they did. So what does that mean for you all? It means that, okay, you need to take the Ethan Mollick concept of always having the human in the loop, right? You've got to have workflow mixed with the AI because the human's going to be more efficient. The AI is going to be more accurate with that human in the loop. So here's the example of the prompt I built. Again, very straightforward. I use the same concepts. So for example, with my user intent clarification, I was told that the format needed to be better. So I improved that format. And again, just using those 5 simple concepts I taught plus the inverted questioning and the user intent clarification. Very easy. Recommendations. So this is a use case I like to talk about with some of the customers that we've chatted with on AI. So you might be an insurance firm and basically have a list of products, right? And you want to recommend a product for your customer. And you could use Prompt Builder for this. You could build a prompt. Again, the machine learning or data scientists in the room might say that, hey, this is a very clear data science or machine learning problem. And it might be, right? But then again, you have to worry about having clean data. You have to label the data. You have to involve the data science team. Here, this was 30 minutes of me playing around. There was no involvement of a data science team. And maybe the machine learning model is slightly more accurate. But with this one, I mean, your time to value is just going to be so much quicker. Classification, again, we talked about this with the Acme Corp use case with the Acme stain remover example. You can use this for classification. So for example, you think about case routing and cases coming in. And this is what Appian actually thought with Appian support. So prior to using Prompt Builder, we had 3 support agents triaging support cases. And this just isn't about saving Appian money. It was actually a job that was pretty tedious and not a lot of people wanted to do, right? So we added Prompt Builder and we had this number reduced from 3 people to 1 part-time person. I mean, pretty incredible. Saved Appian money and increased job satisfaction with Prompt Builder. No machine learning needed there. Although machine learning may have gotten this even better. And one thing I want to kind of reiterate, right, we talk about this human in the loop, right? I mean, what better product, I mean, you guys are all developers to have the human in the loop. So you have that mixed autonomy, you have that AI decision made in conjunction with the human, whether that be case routing or triage for your support team, or whether that be you're examining documents for underwriting, you're looking for certain key things. You think of any task that's tedious and monotonous, that's repetitive, that's something that AI can help with, and I'd be willing to bet that your accuracy numbers actually improve. Because if something's tedious, boring, and repetitive, you're gonna make mistakes. But that co-intelligence or that human combined with the AI is gonna make your business process more efficient and more accurate. And so, I mean, this just basically, illustrates that concept, right, where you have the decision made, you have your integration and bringing information in, you have your human in the loop, you have your AI, and then you even have your RPA for your legacy systems. Again, talking about the AI use cases, there's a ton of them, right? And you're just gonna have to decide what technology is best for you. I'd highly recommend starting off with Prompt Builder first because it's gonna be quick, it's gonna take 30 minutes, you're gonna be up and running very quickly. Then decide, okay, if that's not good enough, then you can start saying, okay, do I involve my data science team for the machine learning models, or do I take a RAG approach? And both of those approaches we're looking to take to low code. So if you go back to kind of my anecdote, like when I started at Appian, I had to be a GSP developer, a Java developer, I had to know Ant scripts and JavaScripts, right? I feel like we're kind of at a similar stage with AI, but we're gonna bring low code to that. And I could see machine learning and the RAG approach all becoming tools of the low code developer. But right now it's Prompt Builder, right now it's chat with records, and there are good use cases for that. Like LLMs are very good with translation. Or even PII detection, right? If there's a huge risk for PII, you could, again, go through my principles to say, hey, your job is to go through this text and make sure that PII is leaked. If you don't know that PII is there, raise an exception so that way a human can look at it to see if PII is there. Inject context, so you inject the context of your PII. So these are all use cases you can do. You can try right now with Prompt Builder. You can even use it for dev acceleration. So I've used this for developing plugins, like put in Java code and ask it to find my bug. You know, I did it and it said, you missed your 2 variable operator assignments, you switched these. And I'm like, you did. It just found that in minutes versus in the past that may have been, hours of frustrating troubleshooting. So again, really this is what I want you to take home with you, basically defining an effective prompt. Again, define a persona, give direction, provide examples, inject that context, that data from Appian, and then provide examples at the bottom. So you have the examples in the prompt and the examples at the bottom. Right, let people take pictures here. And then my 2 bonus hints. So inverted questioning technique, right? So if you forget those, you can still ask Prompt Builder, what questions do you have? Or you can do your user intent clarification. How could I make this more clear for you? So going to my references here, really special thanks here. I learned a lot of this by doing some research, and this was a very good article here out of Vanderbilt. So I highly recommend that you go through it and read some of this to yourself. It's about 18 pages, but it's a very good read, and it talks about some of the science and about some of the math of how they came up with these effective prompt patterns. So, these weren't my techniques, but these are ones that I developed through kind of researching and reading some of the academic journals that were out there. Additional learning resources. Sample prompts, they're in the docs, right? And then there's documentation on the execution Prompt Smart service, so you can take a look at that as well. And with that, that's the presentation. Again, remember your kind of 5 simple rules, like define a persona, inject context, give direction, and then provide the examples, and you're set. And if all else fails, ask Prompt Builder, how can I make this better for you?